Alright, so we got a functioning, working, practical daily driver. So what do we do now? We lower it. So the suspension in this Jetta needed to be replaced. I pointed that out in that first video, but you can see here that this gaff means that bushing up top there is completely shot. So while I was taking that, I figured refresh the whole suspension. I don't know how long it's been in there. Also, the bushing on the passenger side, although it doesn't look that bad, it's binding. Every time you make a full lock turn, the spring you can hear spins, so it needs to be done. So your options are stock replacements, keeps it the same as it is, replaces it in kind. Then you have like a cup kit or lowering springs, which uses the same style of strut with coil, but usually the springs are a little bit shorter and the suspension's a little bit stiffer, a little bit more performance. A lot of people like that for daily drivers. Then you have coilovers. Coilovers come in a drastic range of prices, going all the way from cheaper than stock suspension all the way up to, you know, as much as you're willing to spend. Now with coilovers and suspension in general, you definitely get what you pay for. But like most things, there's diminishing returns. If you want really good riding, really good performing struts or coilovers, you're up over $2 grand, easy. But that doesn't mean you can't daily drive something with coils. So some of you probably recognize this right off the bat. These are Raceland coils. These are pretty cheap when it comes to coils. I think I paid $400 for this whole set. Now these are their original lines, so these go from 1 to 3 inch lowering. And the spring rate on these are going to be the softest, which means it'd be the best for daily driving. After these you have the Ultimos, which go to 2 to 4 inch drop, I believe. And those are a little bit stiffer, and that's because the less room you have to travel, the stiffer it has to be so you don't bottom out your suspension. And now they also have something called the Primo line, which I'm not super familiar with, but it seems like it's the same as the Ultimos with an adjustable dampening on them, which is nice to have if that's what you're going for. In this case, it's a daily driver. I'm going with the, daily driver style suspension kind of. Now, they're cheap coilovers. They will ride rough. But how rough is the question. Now, when it comes to lowering vehicles, as I said, the less room you have for travel, the stiffer it's gonna be, the rougher the ride's gonna be, generally speaking. You get to more expensive coilovers, those top end ones, they start riding a lot better. But that's not what we're talking about here, because those coilovers cost more than this car cost me. So we're gonna go cheap coilovers for now. We're gonna see how they ride. Now, this isn't my first time running Racelands on a car. Back when I had my Red Mark II, I had the Ultimo coilovers on it, and those rode pretty stiff, but not as bad as people make them out to be. So I'm curious to see with these OG ones how they're gonna ride. But that's enough talking. Let's get installing. So in the back of this is pinched. This is pinched in here. So in the back, it's hard to see, there's a slot there that you gotta try and spread apart. If you have it, they make this little tool. It's just oblong, you stick it in there and you twist it, it spreads it apart. If not, you can try and get a pry bar or something in there, but you gotta spread that to pull that out. So up top, you got an Allen hold the shaft, and then on the outside. An easy way to take that off, you can just use an air gun. It'll spin it fast enough that center shaft won't spin. And just like that, I proved myself wrong. So this is like actually the tool that you're supposed to use. It goes on like that. Get your Allen with an extension. That'll go right in the top there, and you can do that. Now alternatively, if you don't have this tool, get away with an offset box wrench. That'll fit right in there. And then that goes right in there, and then you don't need the extension. Both of those will work. Sometimes the impact works, obviously not this time. So for the passenger side, in order to get this to droop far enough to actually get this to slide out of here, you're either gonna have to remove the drive shaft or loosen the bolts on the subframe and have it hang a little bit. And that's because this drive shaft, because it goes all the way almost to the other side of the vehicle, it's longer, and as you droop this down, it bottoms out on this piece of subframe right here, so you can't actually get it further than that, which is not enough to get it out. Alternatively, what you could probably do is compress the spring and put it upwards. Somehow I managed to thread this around this way, and that got it loose. Now I just got to pull the strut out and it should be good. So I got it out. Is it the fastest way? No. The easiest way? Also no. Although it does beat taking the axle completely out, but is it the smartest way? I don't know, I'm pretty proud of myself. Now you can get a better look at how that tool is in there, spreading that apart. The way these get assembled, first you take off their nut, take off this little tag, which says do not use pliers on the shaft. Put that top hat back on, use the bearing. I got new of all this because mine were bad shape, so bearing that side down. You've then got the big rubber bushing, goes over top of that. Then you've got the OEM nut. This is like a slim nut, I think they call it, which fits right in there. And then once that's all on the top side, I'm gonna reuse this top hat looking thing and use the nut that we just took off the strut that came with it. And that's it. The bottom's gonna go back in the pinch thing like you saw. Then up top here, top hat, and the bolt that came with the coilovers. Torque that down, we're good to go. One side done. So the driver's side was giving me some trouble. I couldn't figure out why I couldn't get the strut out. I even tried putting spring compressors on it, and then I realized I think the sway bar is stopping it from drooping all the way. Yeah, I think it's safe to say that was the issue. Once I removed the sway bar, the strut came out no problem. Plenty of room to get it out. So with the front done, we're moving on to the rear, which is set up a little different. So down underneath, there's this one bolt and nut at the end of the shock, and then at the top, there are these two holding it in. And then the spring is located down here next to it on its own perch. So because Mk4s use a rear beam suspension setup, you have to jack up and drop both the driver's side and passenger side at the same time. So with everything removed, we're going to put in the new spring perch. And this is where the adjustability comes in on this set. Bottom out on that tiny lip. Oh no. Oh my god, I'm dragging. Oh, I might have ruined this car. Okay, well it's riding good, but I am way too low. So I gotta go back and see what went wrong, because this is way lower than I intended on being. And I'm really hoping I just screwed something up and this is not, oh. This can't be the right ride height. This is so low. Okay, so I think I spun these coils the wrong way when I put them in, because this thing is kind of silly low, at least for what I was looking to do. I mean,
That right there is where my oil pan hit, coming out of this little lip here in my driveway.
Yeah, that's not gonna fly. I have speed bumps at work and stuff. That's not gonna work. It does look pretty good though. So, like I suspected, I had these coils spun the wrong way. I had them as low as they could go rather than as high as they could go. So that is why it was rubbing and scraping so bad. And now that I have them all the way turned up, I took it for a quick ride, and so far so good. I'm gonna give it some time to break in, but so far it does not feel like it's even riding that rough. It's rougher than stock suspension, but nowhere near any kind of threshold that I would consider to be uncomfortable at all. I think my truck rides way rougher than this thing does, but we'll give it some time to break it in, and maybe I'll post a follow-up video to let you guys know how it comes out.